President Fernando Leon Garcia, dear friends, in my diplomatic career, including at the United Nations, I have always learned from the importance and the power of conversation. Talking and listening to each other helps us share hopes and fears. It bridges the differences and brings new areas of common purpose into focus. It allows for reflection and not acting upon impulse. Many of the conversations I had as Secretary General of the United Nations have remained and must remain confidential. But when I think of the crises we averted and the possibilities we helped realize, I am deeply grateful. Two conversations that I remember occurred in my first year of office as Secretary General in 2007. I was at New York University for a talk and met Ramu Damodaran, a UN staff member, who asked me about the possibility of a global network of universities that supported and worked towards the United Nations purposes and principles. I encouraged him to work on the idea. A few weeks later, I met Michael Adams, a senior member of the International Association of University Presidents, and his gracious wife, Suzanne. We talked about how higher education could serve the United Nations cause, and I suggested he explore that idea further with Ramu. He did, and that collaboration helped realize the United Nations Academic Impact, a global alliance sharing a culture of intellectual social responsibility. In the 12 years since we launched it, the academic impact has surged as a true meeting of minds. Many of the principles with which it began found reflections in the Sustainable Development Goals 5 years later. These included peace and conflict resolution, lifelong learning, and global citizenship education. Where scholars lead, the world follows. Today, Michael is no longer with us, but his flame still burns. I'm delighted Suzanne has joined us today, as also Michael's academic collaborator, Jason Scorza. We pay tribute also to another founding member of UNAI and leader of IAUP, President Kim Young-gil, whose memory continues to inspire Handong Global University, whose current president, Do-sung Choi, has joined this event. My gratitude also to United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres and Under Secretary General Melissa Fleming for her continued support and guidance to the academic impact. IAUP and UNAI have brought together communities of geography and discipline. Caucasus University and President Kaka Shangalia symbolized the former, Upper Austria University of Applied Sciences and President Gerald Reisinger, the latter, and indeed those CETYs under President Leon Garcia. They also highlight the value of cross-cultural education, as in the American International University of Bangladesh and President Carmen Lamagna. And they both command vibrant educational networks, such as the American Association of State Colleges and Universities and President Don Betts. Today, as IAUP summons the wisdom of its members to innovation and inclusion in higher education, the academic impact continues to show the importance of informed conversation that includes and innovates, and conversation that allows those with a voice to speak while also allowing those without a voice, like a planet Earth, to be heard. Thank you, IAUP. Thank you, UN Academic Impact.
It's barely 40 degrees Fahrenheit in New York today, and my mind goes back to a similarly frigid morning 12 years ago, November the 18th, 2010, when we launched the Academic Impact. And we were warned that it was imprudent to do it in the morning at 10 because the weather would be so inhospitable. But despite the weather, we had a wonderful crowd of about 200 academic leaders who gathered at the United Nations to celebrate the first initiative aligning institutions of higher education with the United Nations. And as our Secretary General at that time, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, said in his message to the 2015 anniversary meeting of the IUP, it was at IUP's 40th anniversary in 2005 that the United Nations first suggested the idea of a formal mechanism that will allow scholarship and research to play their deserved role in addressing global issues. 5 years later, with IUP's continued support and counsel, the United Nations Academic Impact came into being. I'd like to begin by inviting the President of the International Association of University Presidents and of Cetis University of Mexico, Fernando Leon Garcia, to share his thoughts, and from us, our gratitude, Fernando, to you for having hosted this event.
Thank you very much, Ramu, and to you for having the initiative and the call for all of us to remember a very important initiative and accomplishment of both IUP as well as the United Nations. So it is an honor to welcome you to this commemoration of the 12th anniversary of the launch of UNAI, United Nations Academic Impact Initiative. As a leader of IUP, we are particularly happy to host this event. As you've heard from Ramu, it was the lead organization that, in conversations with the United Nations, launched this over 12 years ago, and where the focus was on 10 universally accepted principles in the areas of human rights, literacy, sustainability, and conflict resolution, by asking each participating college or university to actively demonstrate support of at least one of those principles each year. And, the number has grown. And I think that it is now a very significant effort. And as Ramu just mentioned, this conversation initially took place in 2005, then 2008. And it was during the presidency of Michael Adams, whom we all fondly remember and recall, Richard Bronson and Jason Scorza, who is with us today, I understand, that worked on behalf of the IAUP to assist the United Nations in formalizing the concept and encouraging other universities to join. The formal launch was already mentioned. And of course, one thing that probably most of you don't know is that it was a little bit last minute, but I got there. I got there to the event. And it was very significant, Susan, to see Michael leading this effort and beginning to see many of the visionary propositions that he had come into fruition. IAUP was also the original host of the UNAI website housed at Fairleigh Dickinson University. The site as such was designed by University webmaster William Kennedy. IAUP members Heitor Gurgulino de Sosa, Alvaro Romo de la Rosa, Joseph Jabra, and Keith Miller were instrumental in arranging for translation of the English version of the website into Portuguese, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese, respectively. So in addition to institutional membership, IAUP also assisted the United Nations in communicating with and recruiting other higher education organizations to join as partners for UNAI. Each of them brought to UNAI the rallying force of human minds working to unite a purpose, mission, and inform the idea and creation of IAUP itself in 1965. I think that we all very fondly remember that occasion because it was pretty close to the start of Michael Adams as IAUP president. And, we miss Michael's presence today and are touched by the presence of his life partner, Susan. So thank you for joining us. Friends, earlier this week, meaning a couple of days ago, whatever it took to fly back from Bangladesh. And I am delighted that Vice Chancellor and very good friend Carmen Lamagna of AIUB, American International University in Bangladesh, is here with us today. Visiting Dhaka, my mind went back to the Bangladesh liberation struggle in 1971. As I visited and talked to many colleagues, they made sure 1971 is very important for the country. But it's when IUP was just 6 years old. It was a struggle that began in the case of Bangladesh with a massacre at the University of Dhaka where professors, students, and workers were killed by army personnel. And hold on, yep, okay. And in the brutal deaths, the flame of freedom was lit, a reminder of the power of higher education, even in the worst times. So today, half a century later, higher education continues to light flames of freedom from the many forces that threaten our world and the well-being of its people. War, deprivation, climate change, and the assault on human rights, among others. Higher education can no longer be in seclusion in the laboratories or classroom. As the world recovers, we must transform higher education that innovates, that is more inclusive, that is intercultural, international, and that is interdisciplinary, as we all seek to make sure that higher education is a bridge to many of the challenges that we have across borders around the world. And that is IAUP's mission, one it is proud to work with UNITE. So on behalf of IAUP, I thank Ramu, I thank all of our colleagues who are participating in today's commemoration, and we wish you the best. Thank you, Ramu.
Thank you so much, Fernando, Dr. Fernando Leon Garcia. Thank you for that inspirational launch to this event. I'd now like to view a recorded message from the Director of the Outreach Division in the United Nations Department of Global Communications, Meher Nasser, from the United Nations perspective. Rahul, could we show Meher's video?
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It is my great pleasure and honor to address you on behalf of the United Nations Department of Global Communications. The launch of the United Nations Academic Impact 12 years ago was an acknowledgement of the crucial role institutions of higher education play in addressing global challenges, in finding solutions for positive change. Through teaching, research, and community engagement, universities have shown immense intellectual capacity and contribute to our societies in immeasurable ways. In addition to research and scientific advancement, universities train future professionals, future leaders, and of course, global citizens. Your institutions are home to expertise that the world requires, that our work in the United Nations needs. As presidents and rectors of universities, you hold the keys to ensuring that your institutions take their rightful role in leading positive change today and tomorrow. In the face of mounting crises and increased challenges in getting back on track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, in fulfilling the promises of the Paris Agreement on climate change, in the words of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, we need all hands on deck. We need you. In a divided world, we must unite, find common ground, and join efforts around our shared principles and values. Academia is a remarkable contributor at the local, national, and international levels. We need your commitment and leadership for a more equitable, healthy, inclusive, and resilient planet. Thank you.
Our gratitude to Mr. Maher Nasser, Director of the Outreach Division in the United Nations Department of Global Communications, for that message. I'd now like to invite Dr. Carmen Lamabna, Vice Chancellor of the American International University in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, where it's about close to 11:30 at night now. Thank you for joining us, Carmen, and we look forward to hearing you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ramu. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I would like to thank Fernando for mentioning the 1971 Liberation War of Bangladesh. And it was the student voices which has given rise to the Bengali language, which we all celebrate globally on, we call it Ekushi February, which is on February 21st. Well, the United Nations Academic Impact was established in 2010, as we have heard from the other speakers. It is an initiative that aligns institutions of higher education with the UN in supporting and contributing to the realization of its goals and mandates, including the promotion and protection of human rights, access to education, sustainability, and conflict resolution. The IAUP has been pivotal in its establishment, and it is an association which ensures that universities continue to support and reinforce cultural diversities vital for sustaining the development of personal identities, social cohesion, and human creativity. American International University Bangladesh acknowledges the challenges and issues confronting the UNAI and the IAUP's principles in achieving the SDGs, where universities serves as incubators of new ideas and solutions to the many global challenges we face, and provides the integral link to the stakeholders to ensure that the international community harnesses the energy and innovation of young people and the research community. Education is the foundation upon which we build our future. It is the most powerful tool you can use to change the world. The impact of education is multifarious, multidimensional, and multicultural. Academia is the key to unlock the doors of opportunities for economic growth, a guiding light for personal and professional development, and the solution to reducing inequality within and beyond the communities. Well, when I was talking to Ramu, which topic will I be discussing today, and I thought that it should be equality, and it's one of the SDGs too, which is inequality in all aspects, the disparities which exist among the varying levels of society, the rich and the poor, men and women, or people of color have all become disproportionate. The gaps are wider, discrimination is apparent, and attempts to bridge it through inclusion have been more of a band-aid for a bullet wound at this point. Sadly, education itself as a sector in developing countries is yet to mature in terms of accessibility, quality, and policies. Culturally, equality is still not an accepted concept, let alone equity, whether that's in the case of female education or equal pay, or even justifying the means for either. AIUB constantly strives to address the social dimensions through strategic solutions and transforming the educational landscape in Bangladesh through knowledge sharing, R&D, and innovation. The university also faces the repercussions of social issues that challenge the educational system in the country. With the persistent and evolving changes in the trends and patterns in the educational sector, from student to faculty members to curriculum and global benchmarks, it demands academic institutions to address the diverse nature of factors that shape the university's internal policies as well as the external environment. Equality is still a global persistent issue on several levels, and education is no different. In the remote and rural areas of Bangladesh, educating boys are still given priority over the girls in the family from childhood. The discrimination is still prevalent in many organizations, even in sports here in the country. Whether it's income levels or gender orientation or ethnicity, AIUB has always believed that the option to pursue higher education should be open for all, free from barriers to entry, as well as free from restraints that hamper the continuation and completion of higher education. The university emphasizes on reducing that inequality by encouraging female student enrollment through the admission process. When we started the university, we only had 2 female students among 70, the population of 70. But now we have almost like 35% of the student population being female. The university enforces unbiased enrollment and also employment with policies that are open to potential candidates from a broad spectrum of backgrounds, processed by cross-functional teams on several levels to maintain an objective perception on issues like income, gender, beliefs, race, and competencies. From the different academic and non-academic offices, there is always a gender balance that is maintained. I am trying to improve the gender balance, but so far at present, we have like 30% of the workforce being female. We offer special scholarship under the Dr. Anwarul Abedin Female Scholarship, which is awarding bright, talented females with good academic standing to enable and encourage them to pursue higher education. Special waivers are also awarded to meritorious female students at the AIUB Institute of Continuing Education. A very special feature of the university are prayer rooms for Muslims, Christians, Hindus, and Buddhists housed together under the same roof on the campus, providing an inclusive and welcoming atmosphere, accommodating students and staff to practice their own faiths and beliefs. Slowly but surely, the progress is being made, and we live in a world that is constantly evolving, where such issues have opened a dialogue. The uncertain socioeconomic conditions and increased discrimination, abuse, and domestic violence has made reducing inequality a very daunting challenge. Embracing diversity and accommodating talent is essential to a successful transformation. The world is in the midst of metamorphosis, and higher education institutions must be open to all the culture, strategies, and ideology being redefined over time to remain competitive. With these words, I would like to congratulate the UNAI for the 12 years, and we are still counting. Thank you very much, Ramo. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carmen, Dr. Carmen Lamagna. And thank you for those 3 pillars, if you will, of equality, opportunity, and ideas. As you said, the idea of both UNAI and IUP being incubators of ideas. Thank you for that. Our next speaker was to have been Dr. Kaka Shingalia, president of Caucasus University and president of the board of the IUP. Unfortunately, he was not able to join us at the last minute, but he was kind enough to send us his remarks. And I will ask Dr. Noe Chirino Hernandez, who is Director of International Strategic Initiatives in the Office of the President of CITES and IUP, to read his remarks for us. Noe? Noe, do we have you on mic? Or?
Dr. Kaka Shingalia, President of Caucasus University and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the International Association of University Presidents and it is my honor to be attending the 12th anniversary of the launch of the United Nations Academic Impact. It is my pleasure to discuss today the United Nations Academic Impact from my perspective. To me, as a representative of the IAUP and Caucasus University, our membership in and participation in United Nations academic impact activities is of utmost importance. Before we go deeper, I think it is imperative to remember SDG number 4 of the UN, which is providing quality education for all is fundamental to creating a peaceful and prosperous world. As the UN recognizes, education is a foundation that humans build their lives on if they aspire for any sort of success and development. Now, this process is not without its dangers. For example, the very recent COVID-19 outbreak has shown us the fragility and adaptability of the education system. Facing unprecedented challenges with COVID lockdowns and restrictions on travel allows a lot of international education. Unfortunately, widespread school closures had serious consequences, both anticipated and unforeseen, for children's learning and well-being. Just the losses from missed education opportunities have been estimated to be 17 trillion. As always, the main victims of this disruption have been disadvantaged children, those living in rural areas, children with disabilities, and children from ethnic minorities. It is tragedies like this that show us the importance of the global community and compassion, of standing up to challenges to ensure a bright future for our children. Trying to do its share, Caucasus University has been shouldering responsibilities to aid the victims of recent global disruptions, namely accompanying students, offering them advantageous involvement and providing aid in reaching Georgia safely. This also includes a variety of international students studying in Ukraine before the events of February 2022, to whom we provide opportunities to transfer to engage in online classes and other activities aimed at providing education in cooperation with the Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia. One of the success stories here is the State Housing Education and Entrepreneurial Program for 25 Ukrainian young women who will study in Georgia for 1 year and gain a new entrepreneurial experience. Ukrainian women will study at Caucasus University for 1 year in the Business and Tourism Program, develop their entrepreneurial program, and have the opportunity to continue their studies in the active universities of Georgia, integrate into the Georgian startup community, and after returning to their homeland, use the knowledge and experience gained to extol and further develop their country. That is where I would like to move to the United Nations Academic Impact itself. Or the United Nations Academic Impact is an initiative that helps to align the efforts and contributions of higher education institutions with the United Nations in supporting and contributing to the realization of United Nations goals and mandates. This effort includes the promotion and protection of human rights, access to education, sustainability, and conflict resolution. United Nations Academic is informed by a commitment to support to advance 10 basic principles, which are also of most importance to the Caucasus University, as well as to the International Association of University Presidents, of which we are a member. While IAUP conducts a range of activities aligned with the principles of the United Nations Academic Impact, I am at far greater liberty to speak about the Caucasus University. We conduct activities that support the implementation of the SDGs on the local level. Our professors conduct research in peace building, environmental protection, sustainability, among others, often through our international projects that align with United Nations Academic Impact principles. For example, we can look at the project Square aimed at strengthening the quality and relevance of the third mission in Georgian universities. increasing the impact and scope of 3M in Georgia. We have also been engaged with an energy efficiency project, developing and transferring an innovative energy financing next in TWIX, which has led to Caucasus University upgrading the electrical system towards more efficiency. Caucasus University is committed to providing the access to higher education as widely as possible and to advancing the disadvantaged. Caucasus University is providing free education to students from regions like Africa and Ukraine. We raise the students as global citizens with values of peace and democracy. Currently, students from more than 25 countries study at our multicultural campus in Tbilisi. The history of the United Nations academic impact goes all the way back to 2010. And since then, it has managed to form a widespread and diverse network of both individuals and institutions. This immense network, currently linking over 1,400 member institutions in more than 147 countries, is of utmost importance for linking education and research sectors. The work of the United Nations academic impact and its member institutions is vital for the accomplishment of the Sustainable Development Goals, as they are the arm of the United Nations directly interacting with the people and ideas. It is them that generate new solutions and innovations to face challenges. United Nations academic impact acts as a hub for young innovators and global stakeholders to ensure that the intellectual and human capital of humanity is aimed at the betterment of humanity. Within these activities, every subject and discipline can be used to advance UN goals, and the greatest success is when independent institutions recognize this and take action independently, just like Caucasus University, which is a partner of the United Nations academic impact. United Nations academic impact is a vital resource for the members of higher education institutions. It provides the stakeholders with information on UN activities and projects and helps to link those aims with their own resources and activities, as well as by providing a place where various academic and young people can meet and connect. You only have to support one of the 10 UNI principles of the SDGs. The more we support, the more it will support us. Last but not least, I would like to notify that Caucasus University is joining the SDG Innovation Accelerator for Young Professionals program, aimed to bridge youth, innovation, and industry. This is the first of its kind in Georgia. Starting this January, our staff from the Entrepreneurship and Startup Acceleration Center will be working with various industry representatives for the next 9 months. This is an excellent opportunity to bring together universities and business for joint efforts towards advancing the SDG goals through new project development and necessary change introductions in the industries. Thank you, Dr. Kaha Shingilia, President of Caucasus University, Tbilisi, Georgia, Chairman of the Board, IAUP.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Noe, for sharing with us the message from Dr. Shengalia. And he too, I'm grateful for his reference to the SDG innovation startup projects. Between his reference and Carmen's reference to incubators of ideas, we have two reflections of the theme of the current presidency of IUP under Dr. Leon Garcia of innovation and inclusion. And I think it's fair to say that one of the oldest chronological members of the IUP who've been involved in innovation has been the University of Applied Sciences of Upper Austria. And I'm delighted that we have Dr. Gerald Reisinger, the president of that university, with us, and a former Secretary General of IUP, to share his thoughts. Gerald?
Thanks so much, Romo. Welcome to everybody. I've traditionally play the role within the IUP to be the one who is more from the operational side. And my idea was just to show you some ideas how we try to implement the academic impact thing into our organization and what we did the last years to boost the principles of academic impact. So we are a member for more than, I hope that works, you know. Unfortunately, it takes always some seconds till New York allows me to use my own computer. So we are a university member for more than 10 years, is our university member of the academic impact idea. And we put the main principles of United Nations academic impact into what we call the leading guidelines of our university, to show that we identify with those principles and with those guidelines. Our main focus is traditionally on cross-cultural issue. That means we hit the principle of intercultural dialogue. Of course, we have, I think, like every other university in the world, a lot of programs and activities on sustainability at the moment. And we have, of course, diverse activities in diversity covering the principle of human rights. Just to go in details, one of the things I want to highlight is this cross-cultural business conference. We do it the 12th time in 2023. We collect 80 to 100 researchers and professors from around the globe and discussing topics of cross-cultural and international aspects in business, human resource, sales and marketing. And this is as well a scientific conference. Traditionally, these professors come together with the one or the other students from their own university. And this is a big networking event, so everyone is invited to come to Austria. As I told you, every year in May we do that. We have this triple degree program together with Fernando, with 3 different geographic destinations, 3 different cultures. Right at the moment we are together with Mexico, with CETIS, we are together with Taiwan, and we are and our own university. The big advantage of this triple degree is that the students have the possibility for over 6 years to touch a completely different culture, to live for 6 years in this area and get a real good impression of what intercultural might mean. Main goal is increase the intercultural competence and sensitivity, and we train them in cognitive competence, effective competence, and of course a pragmatic competence. That means acquiring a broad cultural and country-specific know-how, improving the ability to understand the other's feeling, and of course setting oneself the goal to improve conflict resolution strategies. And what we have started now, for the last, let's say, 1 to 2 years, a little bit infected by the COVID things, but it's running very good. We call it International House. We start with the intercultural training of people from the industry. We invite them into our campus with seminars, training and things like that. We have the human resource managers, internationals in the organization, project leaders, and of course, every manager in a very export-oriented company is affected by this intercultural knowledge. And so this is frequently done by our university, and a lot of people from industry came in to get trained, to get information, and to increase the capacity and their competencies in this field. Of course, we cover sustainability. I think everyone in the world has to do it with that. We start in 2023 with a special program for change agents to help companies from the upholstery industry to manage this change process into a more sustainable environment, into a more sustainable company. We have, of course, a special program for sustainable energy systems, and we integrate sustainability almost in every program we have in our university. I have built up an own, within the university structure, an own department for sustainable development that helps the university to do the change process as well, because it's not a matter of training other companies in doing this change process. We have to do it on our own as well. Well, and in the field of human rights, I want to highlight our Gender and Diversity Conference, which takes part once a year. We have this internal team where from every campus people are member, and they handle topics on gender and diversity issues. We produce every year a yearbook, which we spread in our organization to the students, to the employees, and we deliver to the companies within our region. And of course, we have this yearly conference on this topic, unfortunately, just in the for the German-speaking area at the moment, but I try to develop this into a more international thing. Well, that was from my side. Hope to see you. Whoever has the chance to come to Austria, come do so, visit us. All the best from Austria at the moment. Thanks, Ramo.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gerald. Dr. Reisinger, that was a wonderful exposition, and I'm so glad that you allowed us to hear you in addition to sharing your screen. And actually, the points that you mentioned about the preservation and the sharing of culture, of human rights, both, I think, have informed the career of our next speaker, who, in addition to being a distinguished scholar and academician, was also a staff member of the United Nations for several years. Dr. Don Betts, the President Emeritus of the University of Central Oklahoma, who's now also actively involved with the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, a partner organization of UNAI. Don?
Thank you so much, Ramu, for the kind words. And I have been listening the last several minutes to the colleagues who I've come to know over many years and continue to admire their, not only their professionalism, but their deep-rooted commitment to education in all of its forms. And every time we get together, whether it's virtually or in person, I'm motivated and inspired. And even though I have stepped away formally from the university presidencies, I follow and are actively involved in a variety of international areas. As Ramu just said, I'm working now with the American Association of State Colleges and Universities on international programs and global initiatives. But I'm here today to add a few words of congratulations on this extraordinary achievement of 12 years. We've been able to watch the growth and development of the United Nations academic impact. I am reminded, I didn't remember the weather, Ramu, but I remembered the occasion when we all gathered together. At that time, I was in Oklahoma, and I made my way to the meeting. And the first time I had a chance actually to meet Michael Adams and Jason Scorza at the conference, and we've all received our certificates, et cetera. And I realized over the next couple of years that I got to know Michael, incredibly impressed by him in a variety of ways, and was honored when he asked me to consider stepping forth to be the chair of the North American Council of IAUP, which I humbly accepted and had a chance to work in that role for a long time and continue to assist on the IAUP Executive Committee. This is a very appropriate day to be holding this meeting. This is the last day of International Education Week, when the entire world is actually focusing on what role we actually play in the growth and development of the systems in which everyone lives. And I've just finished today my 5th of 5 programs for the week with Askew, and I'm always excited to look back at how interested and involved people are ready to become in international issues. And for me, UNAI, when it was established, I had that moment, and I'll use the vernacular, this is a no-brainer. This really had to occur, because if there was ever a natural connection between a world organization that represents our collective future and those that are preparing the next generations of teachers and learners and actors and leaders, then the connection between UNAI and the planet's universities and colleges just simply makes so much sense. And if you look at the mission statements, I know institutions where I've been, and I know many of you out there, if we read our mission statements, there's almost always a comment or a phrase that says that we are disposed and aspiring to educate global citizens whose identities become manifest not only at the local level, but also at the national level and obviously the international level as well. And when we wrap our arms around that notion of what we're doing in educating global citizens, I think there is a natural vortex that develops between the institution and the international organization that really was established for us to help refine, define, and embrace our global citizenship. So after 1945 and the formation of the UN, what came clear was that the actors in the international system really comprised far more than the nation states that had signed on to the UN Charter and the UN organization. And as time passed, the role of NGOs and higher education among them was considered not only important, but vital as contributors to the prospects of global peace and prosperity. And I can still recall on UN Secretary Kofi Annan in one of the gatherings noting publicly that NGOs, including higher education, are, quote, indispensable players in the international system. That to me resonated it so strongly that what we're about, this work, really matters. The UNAI has focused attention on students, and every time I open up the UNAI newsletter and I read about a project going on in another country, another part of the world, I realize just how pervasive this notion of connection around the Sustainable Development Goals has become. It has really become humanity's common agenda. And I recall very well in the year 2000 with the World Summit, the following one with the Millennium Development Goals, and then the Sustainable Development Goals, taking us up to 2030, that it was colleges and universities that were really beginning to amplify and to personify what this was all about. That really what it meant was that you as an individual could actually make a difference in an issue that seemed larger than life itself, because you could find common ground with those not only on your campus, but those across the world. And the United Nations, through UNAI, was intentionally and actively creating those opportunities. To me, that is a mark of distinction and a sense of relevance that IAUP has and continues to have in the development of global citizens. I'm very disposed to the work of the United Nations. Ramu made a reference earlier to my work there, for which I'll ever be grateful, but it was back when I was 12 years old that I had decided that I was going to work at the UN. And I recall being interviewed by a reporter after winning a contest, and he said, "So young man, what are you going to do with your life?" And I mentioned about the United Nations, and the caption was, "Young baseball player plans to go and work at the United Nations." So some 25 years later, I finally made it. The point of all this is that the UN has transformative impact on students, and we are kind of the co-workers in that process. I've watched this passage take place in students that were involved in courses, study abroad programs, and after work for over 25 years directing and supporting Model United Nations programs. Those programs brought those emerging diplomats to the UN, where they met representatives from various countries, they met UN staff members, and they became inspired. And the common postscript I heard was, "This visit changed my life." Well, It had changed my life, and I think it also had a huge impact on their lives. I believe that the UNAI and IUP are natural allies in growing these global citizens via international education with a constant focus on building and sustaining democracy. In the opening words of the UN Charter, it was "we the peoples" of the United Nations, amplifying that notion of a common sense of democracy. And its intention of the SDGs to create conditions where all of the human family can pursue lives free from want for the essentials and free from coercion resonates so strongly, not only with United Nations Charter, but also, I think, with the mission statements of most of our institutions. Education and collaborative action championed by both UNAI and IUP are essential ingredients for expressing the aspirations that is found in the UN Charter and in all of our missions. And I'm so pleased to be with you today, and congratulations to UNAI. I look forward to 12 more years. Thank you.
Thank you, young baseball player Don, for consistently hitting home runs, both within the United Nations as a staff member and as a university president. Thank you for that, Dr. Betts. You mentioned that lovely phrase about the pervasive notion of connections. And that's really what animated a relatively new section of the United Nations Department of Global Communications, that of education outreach, within which at the moment the United Nations Academic Impact is housed. And it's my privilege to invite the chief of that section, Jayashree Wyatt, to join us and speak. Jayashree?
Thank you so much indeed, Ramu, for bringing us all together, and really for your leadership, your vision, and the implementation of the United Nations Academic Impact. We're here today celebrating 12 years. And of course, this program wouldn't be here. It wouldn't be the vibrant, exceptional network for impact, the United Nations Academic Impact, without your leadership and your collaborative spirit. It is so demonstrably here as, we convene all of these extraordinary presidents and all of these incredible scholars who are part of course, the International Association of University Presidents. And this connection between these two groups is indeed very, very powerful. And I must say that as the chief of the Education Outreach section, now in the driver's seat to take this forward, after such incredible stewardship and leadership on your part, Ramu, I am very humbled by the exceptional reflections in this beautiful gallery of reflections as you described it to me, Ramu, and what today was really about. So first of all, I really want to pay homage not only to Ramu for his leadership of the UNAI, but I also would like to pay my respects to all of the colleagues who are gathered here today from your institutions, and also from your personal drive, motivation, and engagement, and commitment, and dedication, not only to the principles of education itself, but to the higher and noble principles that are at the foundation of the United Nations itself. And I've heard many of you reflecting on what these values are, pulling out the words of "we the peoples" from that charter, talking about the human family. And I would just like to add a reflection from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which also notes that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and in rights. And I think as we're thinking about this powerful connection between UNAI and the IAUP, taking that forward, that's really what I want to focus my short and brief remarks around, because I know there's still other colleagues who will also make interventions. I think, as many of the colleagues on the line have already mentioned, education is a process of transformation. And the act of being educated and the act of educating are a master key to transforming many of the pressing challenges that we see all around the globe today. And I think we need to be aware of the context that we are in as we look for what is the way forward together to bring about the change through academia, because academia, and especially higher education, has such a powerful and unique and important role to play in the kind of transformation that we need to see, not only within our students, but within our communities and within our world that we are so connected in today. One of the things that I am fearful of as I look around and I see disinformation and misinformation as one of the threats, as I look at the climate crisis that is deeply existential. And I think many of the challenges that we face are, in fact, deeply existential problems that we need to find solutions for. And I guess for me, at the heart of how we move forward together, searching for those solutions, implementing those solutions, is really getting back to that first quote that I stated from the Universal Declaration, which is to keep our common and shared humanity at the center at all times. And I think our humanity is not common and it is not simply shared. You know, we are connected because, you know, as scientists tell us, we're over 13 billion years of stardust in the making. Life is so precious. Of life and the importance of human dignity, and not just of human life, but of all forms of life, is crucial as we formulate the courses that we teach, the research that we conduct, and the community engagement that we engage in. One of the things that struck me so powerfully and with such a huge chord here at United Nations headquarters in September at the Transforming Education Summit was the Youth Declaration. And the Youth Declaration really came out strong and said that in order for this transformation of education that we're looking to do, in order to transform the world, what we must also bear in mind is that we need to decolonize our education systems. We need to also decolonize our minds in order to do that. So I'm also hearing the pieces here that you're referring to around the necessity of equality, the necessity of, you know, bridging the digital divide. How do we reach the students who are right now not even getting their primary school education? And I think we need to be looking at, as especially as presidents of major institutions, how do we make accessibility a part of the strategic priorities in order to really engage with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, in a powerful way that can bring about real action and drive the change that we are all hoping to bring about. So I would encourage all of you to think about accessibility. Are there massive online courses that you can create? I think the other amazing part about the United Nations and the United Nations academic impact is that we have the power to convene, as Ramu is helping to convene this very group today. And it is the act of knowledge sharing and sharing our stories and our experience. I think that is the most expedient way for us to help in that process of learning and listening in a deep way so that we can decolonize some of our institutional structures in order to especially bring about equality, to be bringing in voices who are often marginalized or trivialized, or histories simply erased. And I think that is the power of education. While potentially governments might be locked and they are not able to speak with one another, or they're actively engaged in conflicts, academics and researchers and students, we can always engage in dialogue and we can share our knowledge. And that is a huge power as well. So as we look forward together, I'm so excited to meet all of you. And I would love to continue these conversations. And I would love to engage with all of you more through the UNAI. And we will be in contact. I hope Ramu can connect us directly. And I just want to reiterate how privileged I feel to hear about all the extraordinary work that you are already doing and the histories of so many of your institutions with UNAI. And I hope that you will remain engaged and remain champions of this network and remain champions of connecting and convening with other institutions for this important work that we all do to educate. Thank you so much for inviting me, Ramu, to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you. That was very moving, and I'm so humbled that the flame that I was a part of in 2010 continues to burn bright under your stewardship. Thank you so much, Jayashree. And your point that you made about change that we're all hoping to bring echoed in my mind a slogan that another great mind whom we miss today had coined when he founded Handong Global University in the 1990s. As its motto, he said, "Why not change the world?" And Dr. Kim Yong-gil, the then president of Handong Global University, was a stalwart of the IUP and eventually of UNAI. In fact, he participated in the very first conference of UNAI in Shanghai in early November 2010. We have lost him, but his successor, Dr. Choi Do-sung, has recorded a message for us, which I will ask Raul to play. Raul, thank you.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Do-sung Choi, President of Handong Global University. It is my great pleasure to celebrate with you the 12th anniversary of UN Academic Impact. I would like to extend my heartfelt greetings to everyone, including the International Association of University Presidents, which continues to play a pivotal role in UNAI's involvement in pursuing the goals of the United Nations. The international community has been paying great attention to the importance of integrated and holistic education that enables sustainable peace and prosperity in the 21st century. I believe that education is an essential factor in solving the problems that hinder world peace and achieving prosperity for humanity. For a long time, modern education emphasized winning competition and individual success over cooperation. However, from numerous cases, we have been able to confirm that exclusive individual success without community cooperation is not possible. This will be especially so in the hyperconnected age of the fourth industrial revolution, where every human and everything is interconnected. Even today, we can observe the vicious cycle where one's pursuit of selfish individual gains eventually results in not only his or her own loss, but the loss of the community. It is for this reason that SDGs go beyond the existing distinctions between developed and developing countries and pursue a success for the whole world by seeking the common goals of humanity. In light of the complexities of the international community, the role of the International Association of University Presidents gathered here today is more important than ever in creating a sustainable future through education, especially through educational cooperation. Since its beginning, Handong Global University has recognized the benefits and necessity of global citizenship education. Under the slogan of "Why not change the world?" Handong nurtures global, talented individuals who solve the problems of our international neighbors. We focus on educating future leaders with the capacity to solve problems both on a local and global levels through an integrated education of character, academics, and spirituality. Many professors and students of HGU carry out various projects at home and abroad with a sense of community and responsibility as global citizens. Since the launch of the Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations has been emphasizing global citizenship education as a new educational paradigm for a sustainable future. Even before the SDGs, the UN had launched UN Academic Impact in 2010 through a resolution of the General Assembly. Handong Global University is the only university in Korea that participated in UNAI since its inception. Handong Global is one of the 10 UNAI hub universities for the 1,300 member universities around the world. Furthermore, since 2012, UNAI Korea, an NGO, has been established and has been working with HGU to comprehensively implement global citizenship education. Based on the needs of the international community, HGU established the Ban Ki-moon Institute for Global Education, the world's first institution that provides an integrated global citizenship education curriculum, GRACE, Globally Responsible and Advanced Citizenship Education. We will continue to develop HGU's pre-existing holistic education of character, academics, and spirituality into a new international educational paradigm of global citizenship education. We hope to foster future global leaders by nurturing in them our core values of integrity, faithfulness, and responsibility, as well as the practical skills needed for the international community. Through our program, people will be equipped as globally responsible and advanced citizens who go out into the global stage and change the world. We also have collaborated with institutions in developing countries around the globe, and particularly in Asia and Africa for the past 27 years, sharing knowledge and providing educational opportunities to foster international leaders who can change their countries. As a result of these efforts, Handong was selected as Korea's first UNESCO UniTwin host university in 2007 and has participated in this project for the past 15 years. Handong's UniTwin project is internationally recognized as the Center of Global Education ODA activities, receiving recognition from UN-affiliated organizations such as UN Academic Impact, UN Sustainable Development Solution Network, and the UNESCO World Higher Education Conference in 2022. As you all know, for the past 2.5 years, COVID-19 has changed almost all aspects of our lives, especially in the field of education. Korea was able to swiftly transform its educational model from offline to online distance education to prevent the system from pandemic-caused failure. But the situation in developing countries is worse. Many universities in developing countries that Handong collaborates with are facing major challenges, and many schools have been closed because online education is often impossible in places with outdated educational infrastructure. As a result, we see declining levels of education among students and growing national and regional disparities in education. Considering this, today's conference is important and meaningful. It is necessary to diagnose and solve various challenges in developing countries, such as the decline in the quality of university education and the suspension of higher education in many countries. Especially in this post-COVID era, and if we are able to come together and share our wisdom and capabilities, I believe this crisis can be an opportunity for cooperation to blossom. Once again, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to you all, and I hope this conference will be most fruitful and worthwhile for every one of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Do-Sung Choi. And thank you for all that Handong Global University has done for both UNAI and IUP. You hosted the first Seoul Forum on the Academic Impact in August 2011. You led, as you mentioned, the Association of Korean Universities in support of UNAI, which we call UNAI Korea. And you've also been at the forefront of global entrepreneurship education, bring together universities around the world, much in the spirit that IUP itself was conceived. Thank you so much, sir. It's now my privilege to invite a cherished friend, Dr. Jason Scorza, who is Professor of Philosophy and Political Science and the Vice Provost for International Affairs at Fairleigh Dickinson University, a former Secretary General of IUP, and among the initial architects of the Academic Impact. Jason?
Thank you so much, Ramu, for the introduction and for inviting me to participate in what will one day be called UNAI plus 12. The request from Ramu was that I provide a vignette. And after I looked up in the dictionary, what is a vignette, and I realized it is not something that you put on your salad, I decided that I would tell part of the story of the launch and development of the UN Academic Impact, which I was privileged from the beginning to be part of. So it was early in 2008 when Secretary General Ban Ki-moon invited the International Association of University Presidents to propose a new way for universities around the world to engage with the United Nations. And this request, to be honest, came after numerous conversations between the Secretary General and Dr. J. Michael Adams, who was at the time both president of Fairleigh Dickinson University and president-elect of the IUP. And those of you who knew Michael knew how persuasive he could be. And he persuaded the Secretary General that universities can and should be a pillar of the United Nations system through research, of course, education, outreach, advocacy, and by inspiring and mobilizing millions upon millions of bright and passionate young minds, our students. Dr. Adams liked to quote H.G. Wells, he did so frequently, who wrote that human history becomes more and more a race between education and catastrophe. And Dr. Adams also frequently pointed out that no challenge to our precious planet can possibly be addressed without education. If education is not part of the solution, the problem may very well be insolvable. So in 2008, a small group of us began to meet to discuss Secretary General Bond's request. And this group included, of course, Dr. Adams, also Ambassador Ahmad Kamal of Pakistan, Dr. Richard Bronson, who is a distinguished professor of mathematics at FDU, now professor emeritus, and myself, a young, impressionable professor of political science and philosophy. Our goal was to design a way, to imagine a way for universities to support the mission of the UN that would be more inclusive than anything that had preceded. There was, of course, the UNESCO Chairs Program. It was not as if universities were not present and valued by the UN, but such participation really was limited to institutions that were able to coalesce a significant research program. And not every university in the world can, and not every university in the world perhaps should. So we wanted something that would be inclusive. I recall during the very earliest discussions, we had as the working title of the initiative, the UN Academic Compact. And in these discussions, we began to think about this initiative as analogous to the already established UN Global Compact program, which was designed initially for private sector companies. Of course, since then, many universities have joined the Global Compact, but at the time, it was for the private sector. Now, as we studied more closely the Global Compact model, we realized that apart from rather blatant trademark infringement, calling this initiative the Academic Compact might create an impression of a system of compliance or a set of requirements. And that's not at all the spirit in which Secretary General Bond and Dr. Adams were approaching this. We were looking for a mechanism that would be open and inclusive, that any university anywhere in the world, regardless of how old and distinguished or new, no matter how wealthy or under supported, any university could participate, could engage. And what we wanted to do was not ask universities to comply with a set of requirements, but rather to chronicle and capture the impact that they were having in support of a set of shared ideals. And so the name of the program came to be Academic Impact, not Academic Compact. And today, and we can only hope for many years to come, we will continue to capture all of the wonderful work being done at University of Upper Austria, at Cetis University, at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and at the many, many, many universities around the world that have made the UN academic impact part of their mission, part of their creed. Later in 2008, FDU was very privileged for the Secretary General to come to campus to announce the launch of the academic impact. And at the time, we weren't quite done. We had nailed the name, but we had not quite nailed all of the details. And on this occasion, Mr. Bond said, I quote, "My colleagues and I have been discussing an initiative called Academic Impact. We hope to build stronger ties with institutions of higher learning. I have discussed this matter with President Adams, and I hope to benefit from your ideas and scholarship." Soon after, we resolved the question of the 10 principles. And what we were looking for were principles that universities already believed in, not to ask them to engage in some alien abstract concepts, but rather to reach out to the hearts of academic institutions with things that were already part of their DNA. A commitment to building capacity in higher education around the world, a commitment to addressing poverty through education, a commitment to providing access, a commitment to promoting intercultural dialogue and understanding through education, and so on. And it occurred to me only recently that what we were doing by embracing that sort of existing ideas and principles within higher education was that we were asking universities to do what the UN effectively asks its member states to do. I think it's important to remember that the UN was established, of course, with many lofty goals in mind, to establish and preserve peace, to serve as a beacon of hope, as a bringer of relief, to reinforce, not to create, but to reinforce norms of law and justice based on mutual consideration and respect. But for me, at least, and perhaps above all, the United Nations was established to inspire and assist its member states to become the best possible versions of themselves, not to become something different, not to not be India and not be Austria and not the great state of New Jersey, but to become the best versions of themselves. And I think that call applies just as well to the universities that have joined and in the future will join the UN Academic Impact. When we engage in activities on behalf of the 10 principles, we are, as institutions of higher education, becoming better versions of ourselves on the road to becoming, hopefully, the best versions of ourselves. And with that, I thank you again, Mr. Rameau, for including me today in these proceedings. And I too look forward to many years of success and impact within the UNAI.
Thank you, Jason, and thank you for always being the best possible version of yourself and your guidance over these years. And thank you for the many warm and deserved references to Michael. I still recall the afternoon of the 29th of June, 2012, at the memorial service for Michael when Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, speaking at Fairleigh Dickinson University, said, "We call it the academic impact. We could just as easily have called it the Adams impact." And that is something which allows me to invite our last speaker this afternoon, but a speaker who will rekindle and bring alive the memories that have endured in these 12 years and beyond. Susan Adams, member of the Advisory Council of IUP, and, as Fernando said, life partner of J. Michael Adams. Susan?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ramu. And to Jason and everyone, good morning. And thank you all for including me. It's amazing after these months, now years of the pandemic, to see all of you, even virtually, and so touching to hear your memories of Michael. This isn't the first time I have represented Michael, and while I cannot take his place, I can provide a context for how someone raised on the prairies of Illinois became focused on the importance of global education. I know how much he loved many of you, loved being part of IUP, and how deeply he believed in the work of the United Nations. In 1969, Chuck Porter, one of Michael's mentors, suggested that Michael start a journal, not a diary, a journal, a record of his personal insights. During the Vietnam War, Michael was fortunate to be assigned to a base in Hawaii, printing maps. One of the entries in chronicles an evening where he and his buddies decided to photograph the sunrise the next day. He picked up his friends at 4, drove around to the North Shore for a sunrise shortly after 5. While waiting, one of his friends observed that they could be taking the same picture on the other side of the island at 8:30 that night. Michael records how that question forever shaped how I confront new challenges. Rather than assuming I know the answer or solution, I always ask, what's the view from the other side of the island? During his time at SUNY Oswego, Buckminster Fuller was invited to campus, and Michael hosted him in his home. In his book, Coming of Age in a Globalized World, Michael shared that Bucky, as he was known, was holding a 2-year-old Benjamin in his lap and explaining that he preferred the term in-stairs to downstairs because we live on a sphere. When asked if he had any recommendations for how to educate Benjamin, Bucky said, "It's critically important that we understand that we live on a sphere. Everything is intimately related. Events at one point of the globe affect people and events everywhere else. How we view our world is how we describe it. The corollary is that how we describe the world can change how we view it. Language is simultaneously limiting and powerful." Michael refers to Buckminster Fuller in his book, and I refer to their personal interactions to highlight the idea that meeting Bucky changed how Michael considered the rest of humanity. As everyone became fellow passengers on the spaceship we call Earth, it meant that we all share a destiny. For any to survive, all must survive. And I quote Michael, "The job of expanding our perspectives and breaking down the barriers that separate people often falls to schools. But make no mistake, this is a society-wide endeavor, and all aboard Spaceship Earth are responsible for cultivating the next generation of world citizens." Bucky Fuller understood just how much was riding on developing a global view and educating world citizens. As Dean of the College of Design Arts at Drexel, Michael turned a former College of Home Economics and Nutritional Sciences into one of the premier design schools with concentrations in fashion design, interior design, architecture, photography, hospitality, and trade show marketing. I think that his experience at Drexel taught him to recognize what were the most relevant elements, programs in a dated curriculum, and reframe, re-energize, and remake the college into an update, vibrant college that grew its enrollment and status while maintaining its core purpose and values. Michael's 8 textbooks were in printing technology, and he was delighted to be in Philadelphia. Oops. One of his favorite quotes from Ben Franklin is, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn." When Michael was preparing to assume the role of president of Fairleigh Dickinson, he was sent Peter Sammartino's books. Dr. Sammartino was the founding president of Fairleigh Dickinson and one of the charter members of IAUP. Peter Sammartino and his wife, Sally, were education innovators, and Michael quickly identified with their belief that students should know the world and decided to continue their relationship with the UN. After Michael became president, alumni and friends of the university shared stories of Peter, his ties to the UN and IAUP. And Michael responded to those, sought out those connections because he understood their importance of values. The genius in Michael was his special ability to recognize ideas that reflected his goals, bring together people of like minds, and to work with others to make a difference. He liked to say he connected the dots. Michael's speech to his fellow academic leaders at his IAUP inauguration challenged them to new models of global inspiration and education that would create world citizens. He defined world citizens as those who understand global issues, are comfortable in a diverse environment, and comprehend other viewpoints. They see the world through the eyes of others. They understand that they are a part of a global community. They can look around themselves beyond the local and support causes larger than their own neighborhoods. Global citizens break down walls, build bridges. That must be a part of the new responsibility and the role of the academy. Among other things, Michael challenged IAUP to amend your undergraduate curricula to provide experiences that allow individuals to see the world beyond their personal horizons, to create world citizens, to employ technology as a strategic advantage, not merely as gadgets that replace the overhead projector in the classroom, contribute to the United Nations academic impact, addressing real-life issues in support of that rare organization. He urged you to build new dynamic transforming communication networks that can bring us together in ways not dreamt of even a decade ago. Well, now it's 2 decades ago, isn't it? And in networks that enhance ways to speak and find solutions to unsolved global challenges. Add a new phrase to the lexicon of our vocabulary: academic diplomacy. Sorry. We must come together to offer sanity amid chaos, to establish priorities after disorder, and to provide directions out of confusion. Michael believed in the IAUP's partnership with the United Nations, and that it should be the global voice of higher education. As individuals and as organizations, you must set examples of attitude, behavior, and influence. The volume must be amplified, and our message must echo around the world. When Michael died, Academic Impact had 850 universities in 117 countries. I've no idea what it's grown to today. I think that Michael believed that IAUP and the UN was a partnership that amplified the best of both organizations. It was what Michael believed, and his legacy is up to you. In Michael's last letter to the Fairleigh Dickinson community, he said, "As I leave the presidency, My greatest hope is that the university will build on the important elements of renewal that we have begun over the last several years. It is my dream that FDU will continue to build bridges to the UN, to other universities, and to each other within the university community. It is my hope that we will put the needs of our students at the center of our educational design, that we will continue to create global citizens prepared to be successful in tomorrow's global marketplace. I remember standing on the stage during my inauguration with the global image behind me and telling you that we can change the things we can touch. And we have done that. FDU has reached out to the world and changed who we are and the way the world sees us. It is my hope that you will all continue to make a difference and be seen more and be even more passionate about building a new FDU. I am sharing again the edited version of Michael's inauguration speech as president of Fairleigh Dickinson University. Please note the background as Michael mentions. It is the view of the Earth taken from the Apollo 8 trip as it first orbited the moon in 1968. For many of us at the time, this was an iconic image. The first time we recognized that we lived in a small planet in a vast universe. It was a moment that exemplified for all of us how fragile our planet appears from the vastness of space, even as we celebrated going to the moon. You are each uniquely gifted, and it was a great privilege for Michael to serve as your friend, mentor, brother, leader. It was truly the best time of his life. My wish for all of you is that you believe in yourselves, IUP, and the UN as Michael did. Thank you. With all my heart, as the person who shared those times with you, and you, especially Ramu, who always remembers, Michael's brother of another mother and the loveliest friend to me. Thank you. Ramu, please, Raul, please start the video. There's the video.
I was born and raised on the prairies of central Illinois. It was a wonderful place to grow up and offered a very reassuring view of the world. As a matter of fact, I knew exactly where the world ended. I could see it 7 miles away at the horizon. And I thought I knew my position in the world. Then I went to college. Education expanded my view of the world and of my role and responsibilities in it. Most importantly, education taught me about the views of others, those who I would have to understand and communicate with if I wanted to make a difference. A global education is much more than having international campuses or exchange programs. It is an education that ensures our students will be able to succeed in a world marked by interdependence, diversity, and rapid change. A global education is one that provides knowledge and understanding of culture, of language, of geography, and global perspectives. Most importantly, a global education is one that enables students to understand their roles in a global community and teaches them how their actions can affect the world. We must all adopt a worldview. We must see beyond our differences and expect the most from ourselves and from our students. Our attitude must be that we are preparing the agents who will change the world. If we expect that our students will change the world, they will. When I was growing up in Illinois, I thought I knew where the world ended. Now I have no idea where the world ends, nor how far I can reach. As individuals, as a university, Our future is still to be written. Our reach is still to be determined. I used to think one person couldn't change the world. But the reality is one person can change whatever he or she can touch. As global citizens, as a global institution, we have an obligation to extend our reach, to go beyond the ordinary and seize the extraordinary. As a former schoolboy on the prairies of Illinois, whose vision was limited to what he could see, I urge all of us now to reach beyond what we can see and together to fulfill what we can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your remarks and for introducing that remembrance of Michael. And that backdrop, the world as seen from Apollo 8, and what Michael said about having no idea how far he could reach, is an apt point at which to bring the piece in this program with which we shall conclude, a memory of the first anniversary of UNAI in November 2011, when we gathered at SUNY, the State University of New York in Purchase, and the Italian tenor, Luciano La Monarca, sang for us. Luciano has been kind enough to record for us today a song which I think, like Michael's words and Susan's remembrance, will allow us to soar. Raul, could we have the video?
It's a great pleasure for me to offer this song in celebration of the 12th anniversary of the United Nations Academic Impact, organized by the International Association of University Presidents. I have been a member and remain a devoted fan of UNAI initiative since 2011, thanks to its former chief, Mr. Ramo Damodaran. My hope is that UNAI will continue to wish upon a star and align institutions of higher education with the United Nations goal and mandates. Thank you. When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are. Anything your heart desires will come to you. If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. When you wish upon a star, as dreamers do. Like a bolt out of the blue, fate steps in and sees through. When you wish upon a star, your dreams come true.
If your heart is in your dream, no request is too extreme. Thank you, Luciano. Thank you for that echo of what has animated us in the IUP and in UNAI. And as each of our speakers today have said, we as a global community of scholarship, we in the exercise of intellectual social responsibility, are constantly being called upon to meet requests of a deprived, dangerous, and debilitated world. And through the power of our minds, help make life a little easier, in the phrase of Michael, person by person, allowing each individual to change what she can and bringing that cumulative total to a whole. I'm grateful to all our wonderful panelists and speakers for having joined us this afternoon. To the members of our audience, and I know we have with us leaders and friends of both IUP and UNAI, like Dr. Inan Gilali, Chairman of the IUP Advisory Council, Jim Roach, the President Emeritus of Western Connecticut State University, and one of the legendary figures of the association, and many others who have brought to bear through their presence a sense that 12 years is just a beginning. It's not a beginning that we would have readily foreseen. Susan said she had no idea of how many members UNAI has now. Jayeshi will correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's more than 1,600. And we have really transformed ourselves into what Secretary General Antonio Guterres called a movement of minds. But we've been fortunate in that movement to walk side by side with the great minds in the International Association of University Presidents, who are present at and in many ways responsible for our creation, and who I know will continue to be with us as we approach our 13th, our 14th, and the many anniversaries beyond. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of the day.